Okay, let's do a roll call.
Okay, Councilmember Donahue.
Here.
Councilmember Asher has been excused. Councilmember Adkin will be arriving late. Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez.
Here.
School Board Member Affelt.
Here.
School Board Member Kent. School Board Member Dice.
Here.
School Board Member Miriam.
Here.
School Board Member Pats. Student members, I don't see them, Rojas and Kuvas. All right.
Public comment on items not on the agenda. Betsy.
Well, I would just like to thank Cindy and Sabrina, since if you continue on a quarterly basis, this seems like this will be their last meetings, and for the city school anyway. So just want to thank you for your service to the city schools, and wish you well. But I'm sure I'll see you between now and.
Okay.
Any other public comments? Is there a motion to approve the minutes of January 8th?
I'll second.
Any opposed? Seeing none, minutes approved. Staff committee member comments.
Oh, I have some staff comments. First of all, I'd like to invite everybody to our 2015 Earth Day shoreline cleanup. It's going to be held on April 18th from 9 to noon, and it's at the Shorebird Park. So that's one thing. Spring break camp is next week, so we at the rec are running a spring break camp, so we invite all the children to sign up for that. And our Parents' Night Out has been very successful, and so the next one is on April 17th. And we have extended the hours to be open till 10 p.m., so we're excited about that. And one more announcement from me is I'd like to introduce Pedro Jimenez. He's the new Community Services Director, and he will be starting on Monday.
Excellent.
Welcome.
I'll say a little bit more
Okay.
about him. Pedro comes to us from the city of Hercules, where he has actually been a director of Parks and Recreation there. And spent, I think, pretty much his whole career at the city of Hercules. So we're very excited that we were able to poach him to come down the corridor here. But he has experience working in Hercules with child development centers that they help operate, senior centers, the rec program. So we're super excited to have him here. Alongside that, Cindy is not running out the door on Monday. She told me she was retiring months ago, and I just keep ignoring it. So somehow truth is becoming my wish. But she has agreed to stay on with the city through the end of August. So she will be in the city manager's office as the interim assistant city manager to help with the transition. So that's it.
If I may, just some other comments. Before I actually say my comments, I do want to take a moment to say thank you to Sabrina and Cindy, because I don't know if there'll be another city schools meeting where both of you will be in attendance or not, depending on the schedule. But it's been, I hope I'll get to say this a few more times, it's been a real pleasure of mine as the new superintendent to work with both of you, and I've enjoyed the partnership and the collegial relationship that I think we have. So thank you for that. I just wanted to mention there was a request for some data on enrollment, and excuse my voice, I think we're carrying the same sinus infection right now. But I wanted to just share with the city schools group and anyone here that regarding enrollment, what we continue to see and what we have seen this year is that in terms of kindergarten, we have this slight up and down continuation. Goes up a little, goes down a little, goes up a little, goes down a little. So it's almost seems steady as we've looked at enrollment over the years. Our areas that we need to focus on from the school district side, for sure, and we appreciate the city's help as we work in our continued partnership, is our 6th grade enrollment and our 9th grade enrollment. Those numbers have been going down for years and continue to go down. And so we are doing everything we can, and we are working on this. I had a few meetings today regarding programming around this, and so things that we can offer. And I'll give you an example while I'm talking about that. Right now, we have the Kala Institute for Arts that is working with our 6th grade students, and they've been doing this for about a month or two, and they're doing art infused with science. And they're doing this with all of our 6th graders. And they had a partnership with us, I think, years back. They received word recently that they had an offer of a matching grant from someone in the community, if the district was also interested and able to continue that offering for 6th grade next year. And so I think we're going to go ahead and do that. But so we are looking for things like that in terms of programming. But I did want to report back to the group that our biggest concerns for enrollments are at the 6th grade and 9th grade. Certainly with our new facility going up and steel going up, I hope you have noticed steel going up off of San Pablo. We're very excited because that, I think, is going to help us tremendously in terms of enrollment and opportunity and something for people to think about and to be a large, for the community and for the students, a place and the adults that is known as a place they can go to. But I just wanted to report that data back to you.
You want to mention the STEM programming grant
Oh,
opportunity?
yes, we haven't heard anything. Is that the one
You're
you're
right,
talking
yeah, but just.
But
that's-
isn't
Unless
that
you got
one
an
of the?
email I don't know about.
That's a report coming up. Isn't that a?
No, it's,
What-
well, it's part of the programming enrollment point.
Just one real quickly. One thing we also did recently was we about 3 weeks ago we applied for a $400,000 2-year grant from a foundation who is looking to work with anyone who has a current community business partnership that exists already and is willing and needs support to make that stronger. So we put in an application, a letter of intent that was about 3 pages long with some support from CSU East Bay regarding how we would like to continue to expand our efforts in STEM and science in our K-12 system and what that could possibly look like at the ECCL. And so did you want to add anything to that? Okay, yeah, so we're waiting to hear, actually. I was hoping to hear something yesterday, but we haven't heard if we'll be invited to apply or not, but we got a pretty strong 3-page letter in with some help from President Affelt, who actually was the one who alerted us to the grant opportunity, so thank you again.
Nora.
I have a question. What are the hard numbers on these registrations and the enrollments?
Sure. You're asking 6th grade, 9th grade, or can?
I'm asking for NEH, 6th grade, 9th grade, and then everything of the high school.
So for 6th grade this year,
Let's start with NEH.
okay.
Got in NEH,
Okay, so in NEH we have kindergarten through 8th grade.
right?
So at kindergarten we had started the year with, and it's about the same I believe right now, 61 students. Last year it was 67, so it's not greatly different. 4 years ago it was 60. So the kindergarten is kind of a little wave trickling
What's the total, NEH?
for kindergarten.
Is, what do we have in place now?
Actually wants total NEH.
Oh, you're asking for total population? Oh, I'm sorry, I actually don't have that figure in front of me. I only have the transitional grades.
Somewhere around
About
500.
500, 480, 480 to 500.
So 480 to 500
Mhm.
NEH, and what about the high school?
The high school, I believe, is running at 182. Did you? It's been going down every year for quite a while.
Check.
I'm really concerned. Oh, there you go. I'm really concerned about Oakland opening up the Santa Fe school and draining away those Anna Yates kids to go over to Santa Fe. That would be a significant blow to the school district. Well, we're talking probably 50% of Anna Yates is coming from 94608 outside of Emeryville. What kind of planning has the school board and the school district done, understanding what the Oakland plans are? What are we doing on this?
Well, the Oakland plans, as you probably, similar to you, we just learned of about
Right,
3 or
just
4 weeks
happened.
ago. So when they occurred, but our planning is ongoing. I made a presentation to the board at our retreat probably about a month ago with some initial draft plans that I have regarding programming and enrollment. And you might remember when I presented to the City Council that one of the big pieces for us, one of the 4 new goals that we have for our new vision is programming. So we have to put in place programming to attract students. So I'll give you an example. I just left a meeting over the last hour with the National Academy Foundation, and that's a network of schools that supports academies in high schools. So you can have a finance academy, you can have a technology or an IT academy, a hospitality academy. We need to establish what our academy pathways are to high school, for example, and we need to become known for that, as other high schools have been doing and developing over the last few years. So that is part of our planning. And then we need to further develop out what we're doing for science in our K-8 as well, because I think that the STEM piece is what is going to be most attractive to our parents. So we have some initial plans, they're ongoing.
Well, I guess my concern is, and I'll ask you, John, is there a cutoff point where the state or the county school people say, this is not a viable school district, you don't have enough of a population? Is there a number like that?
Not that I'm aware of. The number for the cutoff is your budget. When don't you have the money to continue to operate? And if you're running so low that you're not getting the ADA to keep the doors open, that's how a cutoff would happen. I'm not concerned about the Santa Fe issue. Santa Fe closed, what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? We did not have an enrollment issue at the elementary school when Santa Fe was operating. We took a few of the Santa Fe kids, but as the superintendent has indicated, the issue is not in the K-5 range. We have people who want to come. We turn away people who want to come at that age range.
Well, we're
what
certainly
the
hoping-
issue is people who leave the system at the 6th grade level, we lose people, and then we lose more people at the 9th grade level. So I think the superintendent is right that we got to be thinking about how to boost our attractiveness, particularly in the middle school and definitely in the high school.
Well, we want to be in a position like Albany and Piedmont where people want to come in from outside the district because of the value of the program. And is there anything that, that you're looking to the city council for aid and support on
Yes,
in this
absolutely.
effort?
That's why we're going to be talking about the after-school program, because I think that is the
Very strong.
single most helpful way that the city can help boost the attractiveness of our school, that we have a strong extended learning school day that flows seamlessly between the
Absolutely.
STEM
For the working
program
parents.
yes, that we're
Yeah.
offering, and then what we're doing with our after-school program.
Because this is an area of two-income families for the most part, or single parents. Thank you.
Can I just add one comment? Maybe not this week, last week I actually had an opportunity to that point about what the city can do. I just want to share a conversation I had with a parent who I just happened to see while I was buying life insurance. And so, so I just happened to see them, and they actually were a parent pretty concerned about, her daughter's transition from, small classrooms to larger classrooms and, various topics. And one of, she's a parent of an NE8 student, and was saying that this was her last year. So of course, the board member I am, well, why? Just tell me why. I'm not going to tell any names or anything. I'm just curious, what are the issues? And one of her biggest concerns was the fact that the housing stock in Emeryville just did not provide for families. And that was her general comments. And so I do offer that as a concern from parents that people live here, they just don't feel like they can raise their families here for whatever, for a certain period of time, I guess, was the issue. And this particular parent was in the elementary school and found that the school itself and the culture was right there. The size was an issue for her particular student, but the housing situation, she felt like she knows a lot of people that come and go, very transient in terms of, families, and the situation that she finds herself in is that needing to find more space. And so that was something I did want to share because you brought that up. It just came to me, so.
Any other staff or committee member comments?
Just a couple reports picking up on this conversation. The superintendent and I have been actually exactly along these lines, visiting some area high schools and examining their programs to help us brainstorm and bring back to the board and the district ideas for how we can make our program more robust here in Emeryville. And we've both been impressed with a couple of different site visits that we've been on, both of which focus on project-based learning, and one in particular has a very strong portfolio assessment sort of program that requires students to create interdisciplinary projects in groups of teams, teamwork, collaboration, science, history, art, and then present and defend sort of like a college dissertation particularly at the sophomore and then senior year. Provides some very strong. Another, Met West in Oakland, which has a very high graduation rate and college going rate. And it's a very small school. It's actually 160 students. It's about the size of our high school. It's a very interesting program. Those students are on internships 2 days a week from freshman year on in local businesses,
Perfect.
nonprofits, and we have so many assets in the community. We really would be an ideal place to sort of adopt that kind of model. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to do. But I think, I do think that building the building, we now together have the job. We've got about a year and a half together to figure out what is the program that we want to be offering that's going to make our district an attractive place for our own families and for other families that want to come here.
Okay, so now we need someone to share the chair with me. And we need a Emory Unified School District Board member to step up to the plate.
I nominate Melody Dice to be
Oh, second,
our
second.
I was
our
like, way too
district
quick.
co-chair.
Way too quick. I've been on vacation.
Come on, Melody.
Absolutely. If it's the will, I'm in.
Good choice.
So we have a nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations?
She's like, no.
Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Are you opposed, Ruth?
Nope.
Okay.
Nice. Sure. Take one for the team.
Okay, now that we've solved our action item,
Your willingness to serve.
information items. Student member report. Melody, are you ready to read the next one?
I know, right? Sure. I can do that. So we're now taking on information item B, STEM update. And I believe staff member, and actually Dr. Carol Balfe will be making that presentation. Chair.
Let me get this up here. Give me just a second here while I get this PowerPoint up. So, good evening. It's been a while since I've been in front of city schools. What I want to present to you tonight, it's a follow-up to a presentation that I made to the school board last June, in fact, with some funding that we have been able to get and some programs that we've been doing with STEM. And in fact, this is kind of a good time to present because we now have the funding and we've been carrying out the program. So what I want to do is give you an overview of the various initiatives that we've had that supplement the overall program for the most part, although I will mention some things that with the core program as well. So, whoops, all right, I'm figuring out, okay. So the initiatives that I'm going to talk about, there's a number of aspects of them. There's several ways in which we've done a fair amount with teacher professional development, K-12, and some of them affected high school, some middle school, et cetera. We've had a number of student programs where we've gotten some funding that were impacted by the initiatives we've gotten, some in-school, after-school, and summer programs. So I will be talking about each of them initially. Sorry, I'm trying to follow. I'm used to a Mac. So in terms of what we are going to be needing to do in terms of science in particular, you are all familiar with Common Core, I think, to some extent, that Common Core is where we're going with ELA and mathematics, and they're starting to assess with that, and so that's been coming on board nationally for some time, and California's bought into it. And it is an approach to teaching that encourages more critical thinking, more integration of learning, et cetera. Well, following along with that at a national level, the next generation science standards were developed nationally in partnership with the National Academy of Sciences, the National Resource Center, and a number of educators. And California has also adopted these, and they're being brought on board concurrently with Common Core and ELA, but coming on behind, so that assessment will not start in California until at least 2018, so that school districts can have a little bit more time to bring them on board. Just this year, the state started rolling out beginning professional development for teachers. So some of the things that we're trying to do with our teachers is to bring our teachers up to speed so that at every level we will be in sync with what's happening at the state and nationally. One of the things that is different about the next generation science standards is that in addition to being more hands-on and inquiry-based, that's been a trend for a few years, but they're much more so, there's a strong emphasis on science and engineering practices. And so as a result of that, there's a lot of need for both curriculum development and teacher professional development. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the teacher PD that we've done. Okay, let me see if I can get this. Oh, it's looking at the right thing. So one of the places where we have gotten funding is through Cal State University, East Bay has something called the STEM Institute. And so they reached out to us, a woman named Stephanie Couch, who I know that she was introduced to the school board about a year ago. She's the director of that and also director of some initiatives statewide. She reached out to us and had some funding that was specifically wanted to target Emeryville because Wareham Development has been also contributing to Cal State East Bay STEM. So one of the things that we had some funding that we got last May or June, we got secured, and one piece of it was for science teacher professional development. So we had 2 days, I think you may be familiar that there have been through Dr. Rubio had added 5 days to the school year for professional development for teachers. So we requested that 2 of the days that for science teachers be specifically targeted this. That professional development went a long way to getting our teachers all on board with understanding what NGSS is and actually doing some planning for the rest of the school year. And we involved CSUB, USEBay faculty for that. So that was one of the initiatives that we were able to do some teacher professional development on. We also, last June, Alameda County Office of Education had been partnering with UC Davis and had funding for bringing C++ programming, teacher programming into schools to be able to teach mathematics and robotics, to do some science through it. So 2 of us went down there. I went down there because we were still in a place of figuring out who we're going to have for science teacher. And I also went with Alvin Burns, who's our computer teacher. We got the training, and there was a week of training at ACOE that didn't cost us anything. And then there are follow-up monthly meetings, and we now involve our 9th grade teacher who is teaching a robotics class. So one of the things that's happened as a result of that is that the teachers got curriculum, and I'm sorry, I thought I had changed the slides. The teachers got curriculum, and we also were given a whole class set of robots. And so I'll show you afterward in terms of the student programs what we implemented as a result of that. We also ran an app camp, and I'm going to tell you about that. I'm going to tell you about the student side of it separately. But the app camp, one of the things we try to do when we run any kind of a summer program is to give professional development to teachers. So we had 2 full days of professional development to Anna Yates middle school teachers who worked alongside the computer programming teachers, learned something about coding themselves, and also what the overall design of an app is, and then we're able to do some teaching in the classroom as a result of that. And then the last thing is we have not been able to implement any of this yet, but actually yesterday when I was talking down at Cal State East Bay, and we were talking about if we were able to get invited to that $400,000 grant, one of the things that would be an interesting thing to do would be to get some training for some engineering programs that have been developed that are appropriate for elementary school, and to train elementary teachers so they can integrate that into their curriculum, and it's very closely integrated with ELA and mathematics. So we've got the training so that we can actually do that, and hopefully if we can get the funding, we can add that to one of the things that we will do to beef up the science at Anna Yates. So what we did with students. In terms of students, one of the things that has happened in the last year, which wasn't specifically outside initiatives, but rather as a result of the LCAP last year, the top priority that the school board decided was they needed to add back the 2nd position in science at the high school. We had gotten down to only 1 science position at the high school. Our 9th graders did not have science. There were no senior electives for science. So we have an additional science position, and I'll talk briefly later about what we've added for that. We also had initiatives for an after-school science program for 7th and 8th grade that is a partnership with the rec, which I think you'll hear a little bit as well from the rec report that's going to happen. And then during the year, a group called Scientific Adventures for Girls approached Diane Lang, and there is an after-school program for 3rd to 5th grade girls as well. We also ran a summer middle school app camp, and we had and will have again this year a career day for ESS students, which is going to happen in the next few weeks. So with the added science position, what we now have is 9th grade physical science with a physics emphasis, and that's something we've wanted to push for quite some years, is that physics is the underpinnings for all of the sciences, and if students have that at a 9th grade level, they do much better later on in chemistry and biology. We now have a stable 10th grade, 10th and 11th grade biology and chemistry. We have a senior elective, and then the 9th grade teacher or the science teacher, the 2nd science teacher we hired, also had a strong background in computer programming and robotics, and so he picked up that robotics training and that robotics class set that we were given, and he is teaching a robotics class and doing it in partnership with Alvin Burns. Oops, I keep going backwards. I apologize. The summer app camp was from funding directly from Wareham Development, and it was for 6th through 8th grade students. It taught them computer programming basics, and one of the things that happened is the students who participated, they spent 2 hours a day in the computer lab with a fellow named Jatin Bhakta, who runs a program called Ninja Pandas. I've got a t-shirt on, the Ninja Panda t-shirt that all the students got. They learned to code. So the things that happened is they had to learn how to write the code. So instead of just pushing and playing games, they learned how to create a game. So they had to first learn how to draw shapes on the screen. Well, that has a lot of math implications. They also had to learn how to, there's a grammar and a syntax to coding. You have to get it in the right order, and you have to have your commas and your semicolons and all of the letters exactly right, or the computer won't do what you want it to do. The kids were starting to learn how to do that, and it was very exciting to watch them suddenly realize that they could take a shape, and then they could move it, and then they could color it. And one of the things that was pretty exciting is to go in and watch kids who in class, maybe teachers would be tearing their hair out getting them to write with, like, use capital letters, to use grammar, to do things in a logical order. And suddenly they were focusing and doing it, and it was spilling over. Then the teachers, so we had Anna Yates teachers were in the computer lab learning to code themselves because they didn't know how to code. But the computer instructor from the outside was teaching that. Then they were getting the big picture of this game that the kids were having to create. And they were helping them with storyboarding and with writing the script. So each kid wrote a script, and each kid had their own game. And it was designed and published, that game. Jatin, who had brought the program in, did that. And in fact, this is quoted from the Apple app iTunes page. The Anna Yates Ninja Panda App Academy was held in July of 2014 at Anna Yates School. It showcases each student's work, and I had hoped I could upload a little bit of a game, but it turns out it's only available on the iPad. But if you go on your iPad and if you Google Anna Yates App Academy, you can actually play this game.
Cool.
And so it's got a little description of it and some pictures, et cetera. So I just did a little quick screenshot so you could get an idea of what they really did. The kids were incredibly excited about this. And I was incredibly excited to watch kids who really in the past hadn't been that engaged, really getting it, and they're getting academic schools things. The next program we have, which was some of the funding that came from Cal State East Bay that did the teacher professional development, is an ongoing right now, 7th and 8th grade students, and it is a partnership with the city, the rec department, and Cal State East Bay and the schools. And I was kind of excited because I've done after-school programs for kids for science for years, always kind of wanted to figure out how to do it with the rec. And so this is the first time we've got all of the 7th and 8th graders who are signed up for the rec are once a week on Thursdays. They do after-school science. And then what I wanted to do is make sure that kids who were not in the rec wouldn't miss out on an after-school science program if they wanted to. So we have, what is it, 4 or 5 kids who are drop-in. We figured out a way with the rec that they can be drop-ins, so they come in once a week. And the students do a showcase where we did one just before the Cal State East Bay spring break. We're going to start up again after our spring break. And they did a little teach me where they had they've got posters and things where they taught each other what they had been learning. The kids are pretty excited, and I just heard from Nizam tonight that apparently parents are talking about that program. So this is a first, and we hope to be able to figure out ways to get funding to continue. I keep going backwards, sorry. Then there is the Scientific Adventures for Girls. That is a program that came in from the outside, and I believe that the first round that they completely donated the time, and I think they're hoping to get funding to be able to continue that one. I know less about it specifically, but I do know that they've been carrying it on at Annie Yates. And so where did funding come from? Well, funding has come from CSU, East Bay, the STEM Institute, and Wareham Development is a major funder of the Emeryville pieces, but it's not the sole funder because, for example, the after-school science program, we have Cal State East Bay students who are doing part of the teaching, but the staff, the professors, and I work together with them to develop the curriculum. In fact, I was meeting with them yesterday to plan the next 8 or 9 weeks. And they're paid for through some other funding that they have down at Cal State East Bay. That's a community initiative. So it's a real partnership that we have. And so that paid for the middle school after-school program, the science teacher PD, plus money. I've been working, even though I'm retired, and working part-time, and one of the pieces I've been doing is coaching science teachers. So I've been working with the new teacher at the high school who's teaching the 9th grade, with both of the new teachers at the high school, and also with our 8th grade science teacher to help him shore up that program. So the total money we've received, that Emory's received for that, is a little over $42,000 to support those programs. The app camp came directly from Wareham Development. That was $22,000, and what it did is it provided for the Emeryville teachers that were co-teaching in the program, for the computer program instructors, and also it was a fairly long day. It was over 4 hours, and so we did provide lunch, so it paid for food service. And then finally the C-STEM stuff we did through ACOE, and it was also, they had a partnership with UC Davis, free staff training for us, complete sets of programs of robots, and then we're using those robotics in science and computer classes. And so the next thing is next step. Well, we want to be able to continue these programs, so as we speak, in fact, I've shared with Dr. Rubio what we're hoping to do. Novartis apparently is interested in doing some funding, so we're asking to fund a larger summer STEM academy, similar to what we did a few years ago. We're asking Novartis for some money for 9th and 10th grade, so that part of this whole thing of shoring up 9th grade, we have a really good introductory program. I'm sorry, I moved away. My apologies. If we can offer a good transition into 9th grade, something that will hold them over the summer. So we hope if Novartis gives us the money, we'll be able to do that. And then we're also asking CSU East Bay then for the other piece of it to redo the app camp and continue that because it was so successful. Then we hope to write grants to continue the science teacher PD, to continue offering coaching, and to be able to continue after school offerings. So we're going to have to write grants for that money. So any questions?
Scott, I have a question.
Yes.
So it looks like you really have done some good work on the after-school programs on STEM, but what is happening in school with the STEM programming?
So the 9th grade, we've added back in the 9th grade, so we have a strong 9th grade program. We have the robotics program, which is now an elective that we didn't have before. I didn't talk about what's already been established. We've had a science program at Annie Yates for a long time, and that was the position I held. But we have a teacher. We still have the science center. We still have the students get science every week at Annie Yates. And then I believe that they're talking about shoring up the 7th and 8th grade by moving toward changing a little bit the design of the 7th and 8th grade math and science. Sorry, what did I do with that? And I don't know if Dr. Rubio, if you want to speak to that?
Yes, we are moving back towards the idea of having single subject credentialed teachers at the 7th and 8th grade, so that we have that subject matter expertise instead of having multiple subject teachers who you more typically find at K-5, maybe K-6.
So if I understand it, then you have it really beefed up in the school hours, and then you have the additional supplemental STEM activities that take place after school and during the summertime.
Yeah, and, you know, it's really one of the things that really does make a difference in terms of attracting parents,
Well, that'd
is
be
that
my
there
next
is a
question.
strong after-school program as well,
How
so
are
that
you
there's enrichment.
publicizing this? It looks like you have the seeds here of a really strong STEM program, which we all know Wareham has been pushing for years and backing it up with money, and I'm glad to see Novartis is finally, again, stepping up
Well, they
to
haven't
the
given the
table.
money yet, so we'll have to see.
Well, let's keep the pressure on them, because I guess my question here is, you have the beginnings here of something really good. How are we getting that out to the potential students or the potential parents? How do we publicize that, or is it too premature?
No, I don't think it's premature. Part of the plan that I presented to the school board last month included some direct mail campaign to
Good,
residents and
good.
yeah, because I think we should start doing that. And we will also have we've really enjoyed the ability to have that inside color page in the city activity guide, and the one coming out, I guess it's coming out pretty soon. It's next week. That would count. That's good. Thank you. We have a full-page color spread on the inside showing the ECCL, talking about with a title that we are enrolling now for 2015 and 2016. So we're also trying to take advantage of that to communicate that not just in terms of programming, but in terms of our new facility. So those kinds of extra communication pieces we have to do.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
To build on
the
that.
reality is, when students really feel that there's some good stuff going on, they spread the word, and their parents get that feeling.
That's kind of advertising.
And that is the
Word of
best. That is the best. And that's why I think the after-school programs create a tremendous amount, not only of goodwill, but we're able to supplement, because there's a lot of good content that has been in these after-school programs. They're not just play.
And Cindy, we're all on board with this in the rec department, right? Absolutely, yes. Okay.
Good, yeah, to build on that, Councilmember Davis, yeah, I think we're not going to increase our enrollment through marketing. We're going to increase it by having a robust program that will
Absolutely.
attract people,
Absolutely.
right? And I think Dr. Belf and others over the years have really given us a strong foundation to build off of. We are one of a very small minority of elementary schools in California that has a science lab. That just doesn't happen in California. And a dedicated science teacher that's not just part of the expectation of the regular classroom teacher to do science is very unusual. We've continued that investment, and that's been a parcel tax supported, community supported endeavor that we've been lucky to be able to do that. Many school districts just did English language, arts and math focus, and science and social studies got cut out. We did not do that. So everything that Dr. Belf has presented here is really additive to that strong foundation. And I think you're right. We have the seeds now that we need to continue, and the opportunity that we're going to a new facility to really flush that out.
Absolutely.
And the vehicle to do that, I think, and to have that conversation with the community is the visioning work, and combined with our LCAP, which is the new local control strategic plan. We're bringing those two processes together. We're going to have committees, at least one of which will be focused, well, actually one committee is going to be focused on what's the ECCL programming. One committee is going to be focused on how do we integrate technology into our programs. So out of those committees will come strategic plans, 3 years. What are we going to do, the concrete next steps? And we're inviting all members of the community, anyone who's at home watching, come, join, be part of this conversation, be part of this committee.
Wait, John, you said 3 years. ECCL is opening in a year and a half.
The plan is 3 years. So that's going to, there's going to be, what are we doing in year 1? What are we doing in year 2? What are we doing in year 3? So yeah, in that will definitely be, what do we got to have on the ground?
Because when ECCL opens, it can't just be the building, it's the enrichment programs
Absolutely.
for the students and the community that are in there. Will they be in place by that time?
Well, we will have in place what we currently have in place, what we're adding from what you've seen with Dr. Balfe, and whatever else we can do with additional funding and support that we're out there trying to get, like Dr. Balfe's talking about with Novartis, Dr. Rubio's talking about with this grant that we put in into the Hellman Foundation. So yes, we are focused like a laser beam, I think, on how we're gonna build this out, and we want you guys to be part of that conversation. And I think, as we said earlier, this next item, the after-school program, is really an area you guys could really help us
No
out
doubt
with.
about it.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next information item is the ECDC and Recreation Center.
So yes, so first I'd like to introduce our new manager at the Child Development Center, Tanya Harris, who is going to give an update on attendance, numbers of children in the program. And then after that, we have Nizam Adamati, who is our recreation supervisor and does our youth programs, and that's the after-school program, and he will give us a little information about the numbers and the enrichment programs.
Good evening. I'm Tanya Harris, and I have been with Emeryville, the city of Emeryville, for, I guess, close to 8 weeks now.
Old timer.
I'm an old timer, I'm a veteran. I come by way of Oakland Unified School District, where I worked in the district for 16 years in various capacities, and most recently in the early childhood development and transitional kindergarten programs. So I have to say that I'm thrilled to be here, and I feel like this is my dream job. I can't believe that I get to, rock babies and gliders every morning. So I'm just so thrilled to have this opportunity. So from what I have gathered so far in my time at the ECDC, it feels like our numbers are really good, and in fact, we're pretty much to capacity. As you probably have heard before, in early childhood education programs, enrollment is very fluid. So it's not a traditional system where children start on one day and then end on another day, and children enroll and disenroll sporadically. So we try to hold as much consistency as possible. Right now we have 89 children enrolled in our program, and of course by next week that will change and we'll have 94. We really only have space for 2 children in the pre-K programs, and we are trying to figure out what our policy will be in terms of reserving space for our low-income families that come to our program through state funding, which for me is a very important part of our program and what is one thing that really attracted me to Emeryville. Unfortunately, our coordinator of that part of the program is out of the country, but I will be trying to take over her responsibilities. It's my project for next week. So just a very quick update of what we're doing currently, or some of, I guess, my wins that I feel like we've had so far. We're working with Blue Skies, which is the only nationally recognized preschool program in Oakland, and they're acting as my consultant, and so I meet with them regularly, and they're also doing work with the staff. So the first part of the process will include helping us to develop an organizational structure, or confirm that we have the organizational structure that is working for us. And then they're really known for what we call complex social play, and so they will be helping us programmatically in implementing complex social play, which really supports the brain development of young children, as well as the social emotional development. I have brought with me a love of the preschool foundations, which is actually standards for preschool, starting from infants all the way through transitional kindergarten. And so we are working with our staff to be intentional around using those foundations as we do our lesson planning. And then enrichment is a big piece for me. And I am working closely with the Friends of ECDC, and we are bringing enrichment programs. So they already have Cowboy Jared, who comes in and sings, and that's fabulous. And our children are getting ready to go to Head Over Heels, so that will help with physical development as well. We are working on developing a mentoring program for our substitute teachers or our part-time staff who come to us with 6 to 12 units oftentimes and little to no experience in early childhood education. So we're trying to be really intentional around how we use our veteran staff to support those folks that are in the classroom and really capitalize on the experience that these vets have. And then teachers are receiving training in class. And that really is focused on quality interactions between teachers and children and sort of a professionalism, if you will. And what we are hoping is that we will be assessed and we will be able to receive next year Race to the Top money, so President Obama's Early Learning Initiative that California was granted, and it's divvied up amongst early care providers across the state. So we're really hoping that we'll be able to qualify, and I feel very strongly that we will. So that is my update.
Thank you very much.
A couple questions, Chairman Donahue?
Go ahead, John.
Yes. Can you tell me, in terms of the numbers, how that, of the 94 as of next week, how many of those are low-income?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we right now have 16 low-income children. We have 22 slots.
Okay.
And we only serve preschool students, so 2 years, 9 months, 3 years to 5. So we don't have any low-income slots for our infant or our toddler programs. I have applied to the state to modify our current contract for the 15-16 fiscal year so that we can serve low-income families in those programs as well. We see a real need. I'd like to also build out the diversity, both racially and socially and economically in the program.
Yeah, that would be great. And what's the breakdown in age group in the 94 between the, how many are infants, how many are toddlers,
Yeah.
how many are 4 or 5-year-olds?
So in our infant program, we have, currently we have 10. We have 1 to start next week, and we have a 1 to 3 adult-child ratio. In our young toddler program, we have 18 children with a 1 to 4 ratio. In our older toddler program, we have 15, but 1 to start next week, and that's a 1 to 4 ratio. And then our pre-K classrooms, we have 64 children, and that's a 1 to 8 ratio.
Okay, that's helpful. And a different slice of the 94, how many are Emeryville residents and how many are outside, if you know?
36 are Emeryville residents,
Okay, well, that's good.
and 30 work in Emeryville.
And,
And-
go ahead.
No, and 19 live in the Oakland 94608 zip code.
Okay. To get from 16 to 22 in the low-income slots, like, what's the plan? Just through turnover eventually and filling those last 2 spots?
Yeah,
Get up to
so-
22?
So the state actually makes it incredibly difficult for low-income families to stay qualified for that program. You have to demonstrate need, and so you have to either be working or in school, and you have to continuously demonstrate this need throughout the year. We often bring people in what we call seeking employment, and so we give them 6 months to find a job, and we all know how difficult that can be, and so we lose children that way. One of the things that I'd like to explore is how we might think about a half-day program, and a half-day program is just a needs-based program as opposed to a needs-based program. So what I'm saying is you don't actually have to work, it's just simply to get you ready for school, and that keeps kids in the program longer. Again, because we have our person that's out of the country, it's been hard to keep up with the wait list. And also, we have developed, I think, a more intentional outreach program with the neighboring school districts who oftentimes have to turn children away, as well as our referral service, which is Bananas. So I don't necessarily anticipate that there would be a problem to fill those slots, but really we have to think about it as case management in a way.
Mhm. Well, I'm glad you're thinking about it and seem to be on top of it. My son went to ECDC and had a very good experience there and flowed quite seamlessly into Annie Yates. I assume that you're working with the district in terms of, and it is about this time of year that we want to be having, I guess, information to the parents who are about to move on to kindergarten about Annie Yates and have you set anything up to have
Yes.
our folks come over and talk to your people? Or I know Dylan went to Annie Yates and hung out with kindergartners for a day. And
Yeah, so in my first meet and greet with families, when we talked about their needs, that was the one thing that they talked about. They talked about better support in that transition from preschool into kindergarten. They also wanted more information around transitional kindergarten. So that is definitely a priority, and Nizam actually took me over to the elementary school and introduced me to folks, and I met the principal and the assistant principal and the teachers of the youngest children, and we will have the teacher and hopefully the principal or the assistant principal come over and do an orientation or an information session for our families. And then in Oakland, what we always did was we had an orientation for families over at the elementary school. So I'd like to work with the principal. It's more than just a site visit for the children, but an actual orientation for families.
that would be great. And the thing that I found most powerful was having Annie Yates families come and talk at ECDC to the ECDC families.
Yes, that's a great idea.
So I'm willing to do that. If you know, put me down.
Okay.
But there are other people too, I'm sure, who'd be happy to do that.
Yeah,
as
no,
well.
that's a fabulous idea.
Okay.
It's also nice to have kids come and talk too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, Dylan would love it. He's a ham. Lastly, the conversation about the STEM, some of the thinking that the superintendent and CSU East Bay and Dr. Balfe have been doing also includes not just K-12 STEM, but preschool too, and thinking about how we can get our preschool program, since we work with a Head Start, and we got ECDC right here with the city. Are you open to having, you know, integration? I'm not talking about, you know, killing kids with science and boring them, but there've got to be, you know, good preschool activities that get kids ready to think about science and physics and.
No, you're absolutely right. And when the last presenter was up here presenting, I kept thinking, how can I get her to come and do PD with our teachers? How can I get her to come and coach our teachers? So in Oakland, when I was managing the transitional kindergarten program, I actually developed a STEAM initiative. So we included art in ours, and we worked with a local organization called Pro Arts. The preschool foundations, which are our standards, actually have a science component. And I am a very strong believer in integrated learning and experiential learning, and I believe that young children learn best through exploration, and they just live their lives as scientists anyway. They're always on discovery mode. Also, I'm sure you've heard about the 30 million word gap and how third grade reading scores relate to life outcomes. There's a lot of research coming out right now that speak to math and how math in early learning is also a very strong indicator, if not stronger than literacy, as strong in terms of life trajectory and ongoing academic success. So yes, I would be very interested, and I actually think it's very important.
Wonderful. Well, welcome to Emeryville,
Thank you.
and glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
Should I just get into it? Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Carroll, for the segue. And also, John, you said it best earlier when you said NE8 is an extension. I'm sorry, the after-school program is an extension of NE8, and I totally agree. I think we're a continuation of what NE8 does. A lot of our recreation leaders have dialogue and converse with the teachers at NE8, so they're well aware of the assignments and projects that are going on. So when they do come to our center, we try to continue that same attitude. We also have two tutors currently on hand who work with kids who need a little extra help. So we have a room dedicated to that. They're doing a fantastic job. We're trying to work on getting more tutors so we can work with more kids. I think that's really important to what we got going on. And real quick overview for those of whom don't know, the after-school program is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And on Thursdays, it's early release at NEA, so we start around 1:30, so 1:30 to 6 o'clock. Some hard numbers, just so you know, kindergarten we have 32 participants, first grade 30, second grade 23, third grade we have 23 also, fourth grade we have 27 participants, fifth grade 21, sixth grade 9, seventh grade 15, eighth grade 15 for a total of 195 participants. Yeah, so we also work with our enrichment classes, like Dr. Carroll said, we work with the STEM program, so it's been really, really successful. Our whole entire basketball team is actually a part of the STEM program, and they have their own group, and what I've seen from them and how they've kind of came out of their shell has been fantastic. Our recreation leaders go out of the way to make sure that they're participating and enjoying the class, and I've come to see the kids follow suit, which has been a great success. Some other examples of enrichment classes, some of our outside instructors would be Taekwondo, we have a cooking class, and then this spring break camp, we're gonna have ballet through Oakland Ballet. So that's really exciting. Some of our in-house enrichment classes, we have a music teacher, we have a art instructor, and I myself, I have a sports background, so I'm trying to get that going and working with our recreation leaders. Recently, we started a soccer program. It filled to capacity. We have 50 participants. There's two age groups, it's 5 to 7, and then 8 to 12. And the practices are held during our after-school program, and they're ran by our after-school leaders, and then the games are on Saturdays, and they're conducted by our after-school leaders also. So of that 195, we also offer a sliding scale, so to low-income families, and we have about 90 enrollees in that program, and that carries over to our camps also, so our spring camps, our summer camps, et cetera. Oh, and then our summer registration started this month, so if you know anybody, make sure you get them in our program this summer. Yeah, and that's about it. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Okay, I have a couple. One of the teachers that I was talking to this week actually was saying that we were talking about Common Core and that it's a big transition for our teachers. In fact, they decided and recommended and not to loop, because we've been looping, you know, K1 or 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're not going to loop next year, so that our teachers can, you know, really bear down and become experts in their grade level Common Core. But the specific point that was raised was that the after-school staff probably isn't as familiar with Common Core, and that we should be thinking about how to get the professional development to the after-school staff so they can better support our students with the homework. And so I don't know if you give any thought to that, if you agree with that, and if you have thoughts about how we can do that.
Absolutely. When I first came here 4 months ago and I saw some of the homework that the kids have, I was kind of clueless myself on how to help them. But you know, Dr. Rubio, he's extended the invite to some of the PD trainings and things like that at the school that our staff have attended. So that's been great. And we do have our lead staff who work one-on-one with some of the teachers at NEAs as far as so yeah, we're definitely, that's a great point. especially when we have brand new staff who have don't even know what Common Core is. I think it's extremely important that they have some type of training so they get their feet wet.
Right. And I mean, I've heard it from parents too, that they're like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this math
Yeah.
to help my kid conceptualize.
I mean, it's a different way of thinking.
Right.
It's a different way of thinking through a problem.
Yeah.
So it's kind of retraining them.
Now, does the city still have a 1,000-hour limitation on the staff at the after-school, and because that saves on benefits issue? Yeah. So, I understand there are cost constraints, but I think that is a constriction, it seems, on the ability
Absolutely.
to have staff who are long-term, don't turn over, you know, have greater levels of expertise to sort of do this kind of integrated curriculum support work. So
It could be a bit trying at times because once we get somebody up to par, they're usually running out of hours. So then
Right.
we have to bring on somebody brand new. And we do have a few staff that fall under a 1,500 hour cap also.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay. Are you familiar with, just as there's some quality preschool standards, I think California or someone has developed quality after-school learning standards, and I couldn't even tell you who or
Sure.
where. But have you
so
heard of anything?
we're not a licensed program.
Uh-huh.
So the ECDC is a licensed program. So we don't really necessarily have any strict guidelines, but we fall under Proposition 49. So we follow the guidelines set by that, which are a little bit more loosely based as opposed to the licensed programs.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I would be interested in seeing on a future agenda a presentation from some outside experts or thinkers, people that could come. You know, I don't know who. They're nonprofits who specialize in extended learning programs, academics, but someone that could help us kind of brainstorm together about how to integrate our school day with our after-school day. You're obviously doing some great work on the science stuff. So that's just a suggestion to my fellow city schools members, if there's interest in that.
I totally agree. I think one route that we can really improve at, like I mentioned before, is having more tutors. Right now, we're really restricted because when I talk to a lot of the parents, they request tutoring, but we only cater to the kids that desperately need it. So we'll have maybe 6 to 8 kids out of our 195 that we work with continuously. But the kids who are, you know, for lack of better words, mid-grade, we don't work with them because we just don't have the capacity for it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think our wellness program, our STEM, whatever we want to do in technology, and make that more robust, and the after school are like 3 areas that are ripe for fundraising, that we should be going out and looking for foundation support. And you're doing stuff already, and you've raised some money already, and so we're not just starting from scratch. We've got some good foundation. I think we have a good case to work together to try to raise some additional money. But we need to have the right plan, right, to present. Here's what we want to do. We want to build out our STEM. We want to do internships at Novartis or field trips to Pixar Animation or whatever it might be. So I'd love to see us try to go in that direction.
Just a quick, as I sit here, a member of this committee and of this city for so long, I've been here for a while, but one thing that has always challenged us, and I do appreciate hearing, you know, where we are now, but I do know that years past we've had grants or opportunities where students, especially in high school, some of the co-location type of activities that actually helped benefit it because everybody was on one site. We had tutors, and I'm looking at Dr. Balf because you could probably nod and say, oh yeah, we had a organization that had tutoring after school for students in an after school program or something. So we've had so many opportunities, you know, fits and starts, unfortunately, but I think that's where ECCL will lend I think, and I'm hoping, operationally, we definitely have number issues. I mean, we absolutely do. But I think the benefit of having everyone on one site, including the rec, is this huge opportunity to have professional development offered at the same time, advantageous for everyone. I mean, we have so many benefits that come with being on one site. And so, I think to the point of having, programs that are, some students are going to be able to afford, others are not, having a diverse mix of activities happening on one site will be a benefit to any potential funders out there. I mean, there's so many, here I'm not trying to be a pitch for a commercial for it, but there's so many opportunities that we have being on one site with rec, ECDC being in close proximity. There's so many benefits that I think we have only, up. We can only go up at this point. But I do agree that, with finding funding opportunities together, we both are looking or have used Townsend, and they have been really great in finding opportunities. If we have Race to the Top monies out there for ECDC as a potential, recipient, that's huge. I mean, that's, the potential there. Prop 49 was a big opportunity that we shared together at one point in time. So I think there's a lot of potential donors out there that are looking for collaboration such as this, such as with Wareham or any business out there that want to participate and see the vibrancy of a city and its children, its most vulnerable, is a huge opportunity for us. So I'm just looking forward to what we have next year to look at in terms of being in one space. But I think, there is a lot of planning. And this meeting has to go on. This can't be a one-time conversation. But I do support looking at bringing in, outside participant that can help us formulate, what that looks like, or what kind of dollars or what kind of programs are there, so that we can make sure that we're lined up and in a position to gain. So
There are some very good programs going on in Oakland, and that are getting federal support. So, I'd be curious to know what are those? How are those Oakland Unified and after-school programs functioning and working? What are some models that we should be able to shoot for? The other thing that you should know, which just occurred to me with your presentation about some of the teachers that you have, the board has approved, and we will be hiring a music teacher at the elementary school.
Really cool.
Starting in the fall. And we also approved we'll be hiring a PE teacher at the elementary school in the fall. And we haven't really, I think, got that word out. But that's another opportunity for you to, integrate those
Sure.
two disciplines into the after school.
I come from the South Bay Unified School District, where I designed the PE curriculum, so that's just right up my alley.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you very
Thank you.
much. ECCL update.
let me put this on.
Good evening. It's nice to have the council and board here together for our regular update on the ECCL project. There's been quite a bit of activity lately if you've driven by, so I'm here to give that update. So design and construction activities, we're well underway. We're actually just about 1/3 of the way through the construction schedule. At the end of this month, we will be. Site utility work is continuing. The gym building E, structural and expansion work is about half done now. High school steel is now complete. If you may have seen driving down San Pablo Avenue, the upper decks and stairs are in progress. Building A, the community building at the corner of 53rd and San Pablo, foundations are nearing completion. Building B, the foundations are in progress, and at the K-8 school, the foundations have now started. So there's a lot of activity, and I'll have some photographs to show you in a minute here. And I wanted to give a little bit of the update on the community benefits agreement, specifically local hiring. Now that we're in the construction part of the project, the CBA, which is part of Turner's construction contract, requires them to do outreach for local hiring. They do a monthly reporting of local hiring, and they've been so far keeping up right about with the goals. We should be actually improving upon that when we get more trades out there on site. I want to talk about neighbor communication. We've had very few neighbors contact us with any kind of issues in the project. We have heard from members of the community sort of through secondhand communication that there has been some minor concerns about dust and things of that nature. And we just ask that if the members of the board and council hear from neighbors, please ask them to contact me directly or Turner directly at the job site. And we'd like to hear from those things right away so that we can mitigate them as soon as possible. There are a few design activities we've been underway the last few months, although those are nearly complete. The pool renovation is out to bid. We will have those bid numbers in within the next 2 weeks so that we can then contract for that work and proceed with the pool renovation, which is part of the an integral part of the gym renovation. The health center, Lifelong, who's the operator of the health center, we've been working with them, meeting with them once or twice a month. They had made some revisions to the design based on their operations. We've now completed those and incorporated those into the documents. This is, I won't go into detail here, but we have, I always present an 8-week look ahead to the board and also the facilities committee once a month. It kind of just shows gym renovations underway. High school, we're currently doing over the next couple weeks, the steel welding and metal deck. We'll start framing the walls towards the end of this month. The structural framing for buildings A, B, and C, which are the community building, the admin building, and the K-8 school, are going to all start in April. And so by the end of June, all of those buildings will be framed, so as you drive by, you'll actually see the frame of the structural framing of those buildings. This is inside the gym. We've put all of our plumbing in the slab, poured the slab. You'll see the wall. Those are curbs for walls, and the supports for the ceiling are now in, and so that's about, that room is about half complete. You'll see those red banners are actually the new fire sprinklers. That's just so that people don't hit them with ladders. This is in the area behind the stage. This is kind of a blurry picture, but you see those steel beams, those vertical beams. This is part of the seismic upgrade, which is funded by FEMA funds. We're just about done with the steel part of this, and also we're pouring some new concrete walls to seismically strengthen the building. This is the new K-8 school. We've started pouring foundations with our first concrete pour this week. This is the admin building along San Pablo. We're just about done with foundations. Looking along there, we've got one more concrete pour, one more major pour to go there, and then once we do that, we can start with the structural work. At Building A, we are going to be doing final foundation pour next week. You can kind of see that that's ready for that, and then we can start framing. So this framing for this building starts, I believe, in 2 weeks. And you'll see that building start to rise at the corner of 53rd and San Pablo. The most exciting thing recently has been steel erection at the new high school. This picture was 2 weeks ago, shows the crane in place as we crane the pieces of steel into place. This is placement of two of the columns. These pictures are about 2 weeks old. This kind of shows as it was going up a couple weeks ago. And now we're complete with steel. So this is the new high school. They're actually up there on that lift. There's an individual who's doing some welding. You see that stairway, that's the internal stair that was placed a couple days ago. This is the metal deck for the second floor of the building and also for the roof. And you can see that they're starting to place that deck now. That deck will be in place probably by the end of next week. They'll be doing concrete pouring probably in about 2 or 3 weeks at the second floor. So a lot of work, a lot of activity out there. If anyone would like a tour, please let me know, and I'd be happy to show you around the site. A big effort has been planning for furniture, fixtures and equipment, art, and move-in. We've got to plan all those activities well in advance. The confirmation of data, telecommunications, audiovisual, and security systems is underway. We're just making sure we review those systems with the superintendent. As Dr. Ruby was not involved in the original design effort, we have a new IT person at the district, but we're including both the city and district's IT staff in confirming those systems. Also, you always have to do this because the technology changes so rapidly with these systems that what we spec'd over a year ago, some of those things are obsolete, and when we install them over the next year, we want to make sure we have the correct and most current systems in place. The furniture program is complete. We're going to have 3 procurement packages, one for the gym pool, which we're in the process of finalizing now, one for the high school, and then a third for buildings A, B, and C. For the furniture procurement, we're using a piggyback contract. What this is that school districts in California are allowed to purchase furniture that has been bid out by other districts. What this means is that we can take advantage of the economies of scale of, say, a large district like a Sacramento or some in Southern California, and the competitive pricing they get, and purchase that furniture at that same price. We're working with the consultant that manages those right now to identify the furniture. We've involved Dr. Rubio and other district staff members so that we can select those things and get those and look at what our options are that align with our program for the best price. We've also identified a list of purchasing opportunities. This and other projects that we've been involved with in other communities and other districts, where we actually allow individuals or community members to actually purchase furniture to help assist funding with the project. For example, someone might want to be able to donate and purchase all the chairs for a classroom, all the desks or study carrels for library, et cetera. So we've identified that list. Of course, that's a policy decision that needs to be made by the board and council if we want to have that kind of funding for the project for the FF&E.
Yeah, and John, if I may, and it's up to the chair, but the staff would actually like to get some direction from you all, whether it's tonight or maybe at a future meeting, on the purchasing opportunities, and then also on potential naming opportunities, if that's a direction that the City Schools Committee wants to go down. So maybe if you want to finish your presentation, and then we can kind of loop back to that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Also, the art program, the art RFP is in progress and just about ready to go out, which we're coordinating that with we want to make sure that's coordinated with the construction so that any artists which are selected and the pieces that go in can be coordinated with the construction because they're going to come later in the project. One suggestion, which a lot of folks have liked, is an idea of an art tiles by children, and I've actually done this on a couple other projects where you do an installation of tiles where the kids will actually do they create their own tiles and put them up. It's something that's been suggested that we may want to include in our art program, and there are a number of locations where we could do that. Finally, we've been looking into the joint operating agreement maintenance provisions. The JOA requires both a certain level of funding by both the city and the district on an annual basis for maintenance, and also for capital improvements over a 50-year period. And so we're looking at that. We'll be discussing those requirements with the district facilities committee tomorrow, and making sure that we're planning in advance for that. So again, these things are all planning for beyond construction, moving in, doing art, and also maintenance once we complete the project completely in 2016 next year. Finally, just an update on the schedule. I think everyone's seen this schedule. Kind of shows what's remaining in the lower right-hand corner, the yellow area. So our furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and with our three procurements and installations, and then the 3 different phases of the project, with the gym and pool opening in late summer, the school being complete and moving in at the end of the fall, and then finally the rest of the project completing in the spring of next year. So that's the construction update. What I want to do now is introduce Mark Cyberlick of DSK Architects, who's going to give a quick design feature update. One of the things that we've realized over the last year is that many board and council members are new to the project, were not involved in the design process. And so what we'd like to do is just give a quick update on a design feature of the project for the benefit of those new members when we have our regular city schools meeting over the next year.
Good evening. As John said, I'm Mark Cyberlick. I'm with DSK Architects, one of the Nexus Architects, here, thank you. This one. And it's good to be here. I haven't been in front of you for quite some time. So I'm glad that, that John asked us to come and talk a little bit about the project itself. And so over the next year, we'll bring something to share with you. I thought I'd just start today with the simple, or not so simple, site plan, and just talk a little bit about how the site's organized, what we were thinking when we designed the project with the help of a lot of people, members of the school and the community. I'll kind of go through this fairly quickly and then answer questions and go back to anything that you'd like. And just to orient everybody, and as John mentioned, I've seen half of you, but half of you may have never seen me before. And so to bring sort of everybody up to speed. So if I get into a little more detail or not enough, then help me out as we go along. But anyway, here's this is San Pablo Avenue, and 47th and 53rd here. This is where the field used to be, and it's where the new field will be. The work that you're seeing right now is the high school building, which is right here, and that's where that steel frame that John just showed you. And as everything gets done, the parking along 47th gets revised. A new parking lot gets built right in this area here. Here's the gym right here, the same gym as you've got right now, which gets improved. And if you drive by, you'll see this expansion is being constructed right now. So there'll be more space in front of the gym than was there before. The pool is the same pool shape as before. It's being renovated and much better equipment, and the deck's being improved. And then moving back along here, then here's the high school, and here's the entrance to the site from the high school side. And let me pause for a minute just to talk about the perimeter of the site and how it's secure. The entire site is fenced. From here, that's a secure line. Then there's the edge of the building here, edge of the building here. This is fenced all the way across here. This is the edge of the building and fenced. It's fenced here. This is an outdoor lobby area for the high school. Then you have the edge of the high school here. And you'll hear us talk about building letters, by the way, and I'll help sort of clue you. And this is building E, the gym. This is building D, which is the high school. So anyway, the edge of the building here. And then it gets a little interesting here because there's a fence line here with a series of gates, and then there's a secondary fence line right back here. And what that does is allows us at certain times of the day to control security on who can get in the site and how you can sometimes make this an adult active area or accessible area, but you can't penetrate into the school without some sort of sign-in or other control. Or you can open it all the way up, or you can close it all the way up. So it's a chamber in which you can get in. This is the library right here. So at different times of the day, you can actually open this up and have adults into the library, whereas they can't get into the rest of the school without some sort of control. And then as you move along, this is the admin building, and which is the edge on San Pablo, and it houses at the first floor the district administration. John Rubio will be sitting right there. You will be sitting there, right, John?
I'll be sitting, yes, I will.
Thank you. And the Parks and Rec is over at this end here. And then on the, excuse me, on the upper floors, the health center is right in this area here on the second floor, and the wellness center is on the second floor in this area here. There's another second set of gates right here and right here, similar in function to these, where you can open this and people can access into the admin area at any time during the day with this second fence, controlling penetration or access into the rest of the site. And then you can also go directly into the community multi-use. So it gives this area sort of a very community flavor. It's open all the time without, with some ability to control, again, circulation into the rest of the site. So again, this is the community multi-use here. It also has another access gate, a door here right into the hall, little Kinder Buddies area right here. And this is the main entrance for the lower school, for the K-8 environment. They enter here. Their drop-off is along here. And then just remember, this is the high school, and the high school drop-off is on this side. With the drop-off here, the path of travel of a vehicle is down here, a loop around, and then park along here to drop off and or pick up. A lot of effort's gone in to make sure that kids are not dropped off on the wrong side of the street and cross the street. So this gives them the means to get to the right side. So again, here's the entrance to the K-8 area, and this purple is the 3-story K-8 building. K being on the, K1 on the first floor, and then the ages sort of go up all the way up to the 3rd floor. And then the pink area here is the multi-use building for the school, and this is the music classroom here. And then the multi-use space itself is divisible into 2 areas. So if you want to feed a different age group at a different time or both at the same time, we can partition it off. And then the central kitchen is right here to serve to both sides. The outdoor spaces, there are several, and they can actually be used in several different ways depending on how the eventual sort of operational way of thinking ends up. But this has always been referred to the Commons. It's a secure area that can be either open to the public or separate from the public. It's accessible from all of the K-8 classrooms on this side, and it's also accessible from the high school on this side. And then there's the play area here for the lower grades. The Kinder Buddies have their own little playground that's fenced here. High school gathering area is here, sort of middle school designated area here. And I would add here, we label these things with certain kinds of uses, but how you use them once you're there is totally flexible. There's nothing that says you can't use this for that or that for this. And no one's ever really designated, okay, this has to be a football field. It's laid out to accommodate football. It's laid out to accommodate a baseball, but it's a great big field, and you can use it any way you want, any time of the day you want. This is a running track, sprint track here, and there's access here and here into this zone from this side, and access from here on this side as well as from over here. Maybe a couple other minor points. Kitchen's here, and there's a serving area spot here. There's a concession here that can serve the field from here. There's another concession in here to serve the pool deck area. Quick broad brush on what your project is. So let me pause, take a breath, let you guys ask questions and see if I can. Yes.
Thank you very much for this introduction.
Yeah.
Excuse me for what everything's going to look like. I think the battery. Here you go.
You know what? Put it on mute to say that it didn't work.
Oh, now it's working. So I know in our phase 2 of construction, which is currently unfunded, if I'm, please correct me if I'm wrong, we have a bicycle path that potentially would be, I guess, on the other side of the school. Now, if the funding were to come through for that somehow, I'm just trying to envision that access to the rest of the school that a bicycle path would provide. It just, I don't see how it connects or flows with the rest of the school in terms of entrances, parking, walking,
It's actually, it would be an independent path. It would not be an access into the school. It's a way to circulate and connect the bike planning for the whole city from one side to the other side. So it is the link from here over to here rather than coming onto San Pablo or coming through other streets.
Very
That's its
good.
primary.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Then thank you for clarifying that for me. I guess my other question would be for those families that do choose to bike to school, where bicycle parking would be, and has that been thought about? How many spaces would there be? Lockers, corrals, anything else to support alternative modes of transportation?
Yeah, there's bicycle parking here, 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 over here, and there are bicycle lockers right here, and I think there's some more here. I can't remember the exact number, but it's somewhere around 130 bikes, but I'd have to look that up to give you the exact number.
I would love the exact number at some point.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was one of the issues that got a lot of consideration. Anything else? Yeah.
Quick question. Pertaining to the dovetail, I'm sorry. I'm Don Merriam, and I actually am an architect specializing in school design.
I've heard that.
City firm. And I have a quick question pertaining to CHIPS, and it's dovetails with Diane's comment pertaining bike storage. Was CHIPS program basically, a little explanation is, it's California, it's basically coalition, was it CHIPS is California High Performance Schools, and it's equivalent to a LEED certification or LEED accreditation when it comes to use of the site, and it does include a number of things as far as use regarding access, mechanical, electrical, basically how the entire site is going to be used. And with that in mind, the bicycle component plays out in that as well as far as achieving points as far as a scorecard similar to a LEED application. In that mind, what did you approach the project? Did you use it as a means of or basis of design to get these numbers of 130? Because it seems a little low regarding the overall use of the site, because the proximity of the site to everybody else in the community, and bicycles would be a very, very, I want to say, integral part of transportation to the site. So my question is, how did you go to that approach to using CHIPS as a basis of some of your design?
Well, we're certainly aware of both CHIPS and LEED as a sort of broader, both, environmental sustainable design process specific to the bicycle parking. That came out of some discussions with Bike Ped Committee for the city, and that's where the number. And I got to be careful. I did say a number 130. I have to look that number up. So. But anyway, that's where the number ended up came from the discussions with the city Bike Ped Committee.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Well, as I leave, one thing, let John know if as time goes on, there are specific things you'd like to hear more about the next time we're here. That'll give us some time to make sure we prepare something that interests you all. Thank you.
Chair, we should make sure that public can comment on our various items too, I guess. We've not been doing that well this evening.
So just as the city manager had mentioned, we wanted to maybe discuss a bit more of the purchasing, naming opportunity issues which have been discussed.
So I'll start it off, but there's kind of three categories that I think we could use a little direction on, or a lot of direction on at this point. So one, it's that John mentioned, the purchasing opportunities. We're looking at some examples of what some other schools and community centers have done in terms of, you have the furniture and fixtures, very specific items, and really running, more of a campaign to go out there. And Cindy has some examples of what we've looked at, things like, the gym equipment, for example, really a la carte items that somebody could actually go out and just purchase for us as a donation. So that's one category. Another category is looking potentially at, I guess we would call them more like pavers, which is like a donate a brick program,
Right, exactly.
which I think you've done in some
Yes,
of your
we
projects.
have, which where a donor would just donate an amount to participate in the project, and then would have the individual's name on a brick in a paving area, which is done often on projects.
And then the third, which we absolutely need some clear direction on, is something that was raised, I think, a while ago. I don't know if it was in this committee or offline, which is on naming opportunities, which some public centers have done. Many have opted to not do for various reasons. We have gone through the site and looked at, if that is something that you all would want to explore further, what those potential places could be in our mind, based off of also John's experience. So, I think those are the three. We could definitely use some feedback on that. And then just mechanically, kind of how you would recommend that we go about launching this campaign.
Any discussion on this issue? Ruth?
I'll jump in. So, I like the buy a brick idea because that way monies can be pooled and then devoted to something that is determined to be of highest need. And quite frankly, it feels a little more egalitarian to me than if you stick a name on a expensive piece of equipment or a room or something like that. I went to a school, undergraduate school, where the joke was that the buildings would fall down if the corner plates were taken off of them. But, so I for one, just really support a brick idea for those various reasons. If people wanted to buy a la carte, gym equipment or something like that, I don't know if that would offer them. I guess the only thing that I would say is maybe on the wall of the gym, just have a donor board without much fanfare, and say they contributed these fixtures or whatever. But I'd rather keep it simple and as egalitarian as possible when it comes to these class issues. And it would offer an opportunity for individuals as well as businesses, and kind of level the playing field that way. I don't know who would administer it, who would collect it, who you write a check to. That could fall to a member of the community, or it could be a community committee that goes out and drums up business. So I like the idea that it could be promoted by the community. But who administers it is another story.
I have seen disproportionate naming in a way that just isn't, we have to be careful not to have big names and people getting the impression that the California taxpayers, the Emeryville taxpayers, and the public didn't contribute as much as they did. So there's some aspect about it that it has to be proportional, is my feeling.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in, Ruth. I agree with you on the pavers. We did that at City Hall. It was run by a community group. It's very low-key, it's very egalitarian, but it gives people a sense that they're part of this, this was going to be a really spectacular structure. The problem is, of course, who is going to administer it? Unfortunately, Jim Golden, who really ran that program on the pavers, is gone, and I don't see anyone else in the community stepping up. But that's one way to do it, and that gives, it was a very modest sum. What was it, $50, something like that? Very, very modest. But everybody had a chance to participate. I agree with you, Scott. I am very reluctant to get into this arena of naming parts of the school for either businesses or people. Right. I think it detracts from the general public, which really put the big bucks into this. That's where the main part of the money comes. The other thing is what is the shortfall here? What specifically do we need help with, and how much is it going to cost? We don't have any ideas on that.
Well, we have some ideas, and I'll let you elaborate on anything that I don't get right. In terms of your a shortfall, as you know, by the time we were able to, both bodies, we approved the project last August, construction costs have been rising for the last few years. So as you may know, I think you know, we have been planning on value engineering about $2.5 million from the project. So we've been working together jointly, the city and the district, on what are the items that we can maybe change in terms of the type of material being used. But at the same time, the city manager and I have been very careful and cautious, I think it's fair to say, to keep the, what we see as the very important components of the facility, such as the, giving the students some cover when it's raining, or the type of lighting that will be needed for the community and events in the evening. So we're trying to balance out this shortfall problem. The other area where we have a difficulty is going to be furnitures, fixtures, and equipment. So the budget originally had about $2.5 million budgeted for furniture and fixtures and equipment for the entire facility. We changed that amount at the 11th hour to about, I think, between the value engineering and that change down to about $865,000 or so on that line item to try to keep the project in the area of the, or under the, what was the guaranteed maximum price that we wanted to do this project for, hoping that we would see some real cost savings by maybe reusing, for example, the furniture that's currently in the classrooms. Well, I've learned a few things, more than I probably ever wanted to learn about construction and other things, but I've learned a few things since then. One is that we really, if we reuse the classroom furniture, the cost savings is very minimal. And there are things that I think were maybe missing from some of the furniture planning that, that we may not just have been thought out yet, just based on where the project was. I don't, I'd have to think specifically more about that, but you know, there are lots of things that are needed. So in terms of the shortfall, we have, the biggest concern I have is this furniture, fixtures, and equipment piece. As you know, the city money is allocated specifically for construction money.
Well, one of the things here, there's a real difference between what is needed to be operational and what is wanted. And if we are constrained on the dollars that we have to have a clear understanding what is needed to be operational, and then there's beyond that what is the wants.
Sure.
It's a whole different thing, and I think you have to face the reality of economics. What do you think, Ruth? And we have to have that information before, I think we have to have that information before we can make real judgments on moving into this arena of naming parts of the school. It's kind of offensive to me.
Did staff hope to raise $2.5 million?
No, and let me just clarify that. The project as it is now, the $90 million or $89.6 million project as it is now, is on budget. And it builds the school that we presented to you all.
And operation.
With the operational school and full community center. There are, but that included, as Dr. Rubio mentioned, when we brought it to you all in August, some value engineering items that we did take out of the project. And we made sure that the items that we took out were things that we could live without rather. Order of magnitude, there are a few items that are still there that are order of magnitude closer to probably about $250,000 to $400,000 that are things that are not in the we must have to move in to, you know, on day one, and they're not in the nice to haves. They're still in the category of something that we would really like to find some way to pay for. So order of magnitude, you're talking closer to maybe $300,000 to $400,000 of those large items. That's outside of the furniture, the FF&E, which, you know, at this point, we don't have a dollar shortfall on it. You know, we are running based off of the list that we have on budget. So there, again, we get into the, are there things that would be in the nice to haves? Absolutely. We have had to cut some of those things. So, you know, and also these are things that maybe over time we can also think about replacing with some of the furniture. So, anyways, I think the closer to your question, the order of magnitude of what we're really talking about is more around the $250,000 to $400,000 on the construction side. But I want to emphasize on the $90 million project that we presented to you all, that you approved, it is on budget and we can build that project within the $90 million. And we have not spent any of the contingency money.
Well, Sabrina, if that is the case, why are we being presented with having to make a decision about this now, especially in the arena of the naming. That's a real push button, a hot button there.
Absolutely, and that's why we're
I mean,
here.
I'm
We want very,
contemplating
very early
KFC,
direction.
ECCL.
Yes.
Kind of
We
popped
do
into
not,
my mind.
we do not want to spend any staff time on something that you all do not want. So that's why we are here.
Well, what's everybody else think about this?
I think maybe pertaining to this mixed issue, maybe there's a mixed issue or mixed message regarding naming rights versus drumming up monies for additional items on the list. And naming would be beyond what any of us in this room probably perceive the new facility to have occur. I think the items such as like the pavers and things like, there's some preparation that needs to be taken if you're planning to do that in doing paving, because there has to be certain construction means in order to do it. You just can't do it at the last moment when everything is done and say, we're gonna put these bricks in or these pavers in. There has to be prep, and so we have to get that in line in order to have that happen. So if we were to go forward with, let's say, a donation board or a paving items, then you'd have to have that in place prior to that, the work occurring. So that's probably why we want to say, let's have something in store or ready to go if in fact it does go forward.
So I think I share the general trepidation about selling our public property. You know, although if someone gave us $1 million for the courtyard, or some kind of some innocuous piece, the basketball court, I might go for that. But the building, the facility, the identity of the place, no, I wouldn't be interested in that. I'm kind of interested in the logistics of the paving. Are we talking like, do we have space for bricks? If so, how many bricks?
Go over and look at City Hall.
Yeah.
Where the link is, outside the link, the pavers
I
are.
recall seeing it, but how many bricks?
Let me tell you, a lot of effort went in that, and it really did not pay off very well.
Is that right?
Yeah, a lot of effort went into it.
Yeah. I mean, do you have a sense? Are we talking about 100 bricks, 1,000 bricks?
There's a large areas of concrete and architectural paving throughout the community commons and different entries, so there's certainly space. But as Mr. Mayor noted, we really have to start planning for that soon. That work, fortunately, it goes in towards the latter part of the project. So a lot of that work actually won't be done until after the high school is operating and occupied. So we have some time. But I would say that we would need to really know about that by, say, next fall, if we're going to do that sort of thing, because we have to redesign the paving and
how much is that going to cost?
Bricks and things like that.
How much is it going to cost to redesign?
The design costs are fairly nominal. I think we have to, when you do that sort of thing, you have to determine really what, and there are various capital campaign people that I've worked with, what's the amount that the donation per brick, what can those bricks say on them? You need to make sure that it's, that there's guidelines for that kind of thing. So it really depends. I mean, usually when you do these campaigns, you'll see things that are like $1,000 for a brick sort of thing, because the brick itself might cost, $300 to make or something like that. So we need to kind of look at all those options. And I think, as the city manager mentioned, we have to start planning for that stuff now if we're going to do it, because this is a very fast-moving project, and we would really need to make decisions on where we're going to do these things by next fall. So we've got to, if we're going to pursue that, we need to start planning for it now.
But even taking your $1,000, which I think that would be great. We should, $50 doesn't seem like it's worth it, but can we sell $300,000 bricks? Maybe, but. And maybe there should be a sliding scale,
We
but.
really should consider our population here.
Yeah.
Both the business population and the resident population. Less than 10% of the people here have school-age children. This is not a suburban community where you really have a big gathering of parents and people really rah-rah. And the businesses, who knows, about their participation there. So you could spend a lot of time and effort on this and raise very little money, and you don't want to delay the project.
Well, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm just trying to get the, do you even have space for 300 bricks?
Yeah,
I mean,
we
that-
do. There's quite a bit of hardscape. It would certainly, that I think is probably the easiest part of doing this. More difficult things are getting the schedule right, then of course the outreach and things of that nature. But our research, I looked into this, and it's about $300 to manufacture and install a brick and get the names in it. So you've got to think of that metric when you're thinking of what you might ask
yeah,
people to donate for a
That's a
brick.
lot for some people, even just to get to the cost.
Well, no, the $300 is what it costs you. You have to
Right.
bump it up to $1,000 to really make any money on it.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
not just.
I'm sorry. I have a question for the group. Just, I was thinking about Councilmember Donahue's comments about balancing this, I guess, perception of where the funding has come from for the project, and we probably wouldn't want to start naming buildings and selling off hallways and different parts. However, I did want to propose an idea that just, and you can throw stones at me or not.
Or pavers.
My only thought is that, I think that in terms of that balance, the one area that I think we should maybe consider, I would ask you to consider, is the field. I think, the businesses sometimes maybe don't see the opportunities to be supportive of the systems that we need them to be supportive of. And I think that that might be the one area that we might want to give some consideration to. And I don't think it would unbalance things to such the extent that naming all the buildings and different things would. But I'm wondering if both bodies feel that that might be something that we could keep exploring in terms of that one area, depending on the amount of money. I'm not sure I wasn't sure if we want to close that door just yet without knowing if there was, what the potential funding could be.
I was just gonna say, I recall, and I've just been here a long time. So, I do recall a company being interested at a six-figure, interest in a field. I mean, that actually kind of resonated with my memory. So, I mean, early days, there was definitely a fitness or a company that participates in supplements of the fitness sort. Whatever their company name is, not coming to me right now. Cliff Bar, I think, might have been, had interest in doing some type of participating in the project in that way. That's been some years ago, though. Now I don't know if the interest is the same. But similarly, if you think about, we have now and we've always had a Novartis, but we have Griffles who's here. They may be interested in supporting science equipment or a science classroom or something. So, I mean, there are some strategic ways to accomplish some of that work. By no means, I was thinking about Dice Hall, and I didn't know which hallway that would be. I thought about it.
With the statue?
With a statue, put me up there, and but I thought against that, and because I learned that Dice really isn't my name, but Diaz Hall would be it. But I think that's one of those things that there may be some middle places that make sense, because community is definitely not only those of us who've been long-term residents and new residents of Emeryville, but definitely there's some businesses that have been here a long time and have been able to commit to us in small ways and in really big ways. So there may be some, some ways to kind of do it and make sure we're not, because I don't think we need to, I wouldn't want to call Emeryville or EC, we thought about getting rid of ECHL. I mean, remember that was the whole thing. Why are we still calling it ECCL? I mean, that was one big thing at one time. So, I mean, there's some opportunities, but the field is a great one. Dice Hall, Diaz Hall, Dice Diaz Hall would be great. But hey, but there are a number of alum. I will say that there's a huge legacy in terms of students that have gone through the school system of Emeryville as well. So I'm certain that there would be opportunities. People who have a passion still. Facebook, there's a I'm about to say family reunion. There's a class reunion being planned for all classes right now. That'll be in July. So this is something. If there is a thought, an idea, I have no problem, pushing that information to them, because I won't be in town. But there definitely are ways that people want to contribute, and they still believe that they're Emory Spartans or Annie-Aids, whatever the mascot is. I mean, these are people that have been here a long time, residents. students that were from outside, but they still are home to Emory Unified. So I think there's ways that people would be engaged with, right, the amounts, the sliding scale may be a question, but we have a lot of distinguished folks who'll be interested in putting in whatever amount too, so I just throw that out, that there are some ways.
The alumni would want to contribute to it?
Absolutely. I see a brick, something. I've
Sign
been
this
here a
one
long
up.
time, put me down. But I think that's the whole thing, you know, there is interest, but we just don't really know what the interest is because we've been so busy with the building. You know, we hadn't gotten to this conversation, so I'm glad you brought it up as something to consider. But I do think there's a couple of avenues, but I don't think we need to sell our soul, not at all, but.
So I have a question for both Sabrina and John, and that is, under the terms of the joint operating agreement, I don't think we ever spelled out where this particular action would take